Good morning. This is Mac on the Rock for Blink Radio. I have the pleasure to introduce to you two people who have been a founder of a workshop for peaceful separation. One of them, my guest, is named Barabra Alvarez, and the other is Gilza Martinez.
Thank you, Manny. Thank you so
Manny.
much.
Yes.
Hello, and welcome to Peaceful Separation here on Blink Radio. We're your hosts, Barabra Alvarez, and
I'm Gilza Martinez.
And today we'll talk about conscious divorce, separating peacefully for the health of the family and all its members.
So first off, let's introduce ourselves then and what qualifies us to talk about this subject.
You first, Gilza.
Okay. So as I said, my name is Gilza, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I've been practicing in Miami-Dade County for, Barbara, over 25 years. Okay, working a lot with children, couples, families, different life transitions. And having been divorced myself, not being in a great place for a long time after that divorce, my practice took a bit of a hit trying to figure out, well, how am I helping families if I'm getting divorced myself? And how can I tell people what to do if I don't know what I'm doing? So from there came a lot of that soul searching and redefining my practice. And then I met you, Barb.
Thank you. And let's see, what qualifies me? Well, I have been divorced twice. And both times it was pretty amicable, except that I didn't know that I was having a conscious divorce. It was sort of kind of, I wanted to be friendly and I wanted to be nice and I wanted to be at peace. And let's see, I'm also a yoga teacher and I work with a lot of people on mind-body issues. And the yoga community, as you know, is a very peaceful, loving community. And this is an idea that has really taken root in that community. So Gilza and I got together, I don't know, about last year, and we decided to create this mind-body workshop called Peaceful Separation, where we could marry, if you will, the concepts of, therapy with the concepts of yoga and movement in being able to help people transition through divorce and separation, but in a peaceful, cooperative way.
Yes. We both talked a lot about how to really get that, to really get people to understand that this mind-body connection reflects, kind of spills out into other relationships, and particularly for their children, children that surround even their own children. So we put together, right, this timing and these conversations with people and really trying to be able to talk about all of the range of feelings that happen when people separate. Now, why did we do this, Barb? Where does this idea come from for us?
Well, it was born from a workshop that we did together, actually. We were up in Massachusetts at the Kripalu Center for Yoga, and we were doing a transformational workshop. It was called Leading Transformational Workshops. And I was in the process of a difficult divorce. And difficult, I say, because, of course, divorce is always so emotional. And it's such a hard thing, especially when you have kids. And you, as my girlfriend, always have been someone who has helped me process whatever transition I'm going through in my life. And we came out of there talking about how maybe we could help people by putting together not just a workshop where people would talk and talk about their feelings and address each other, but also move through it, do a whole mind, body, something that involved yoga, something that involved breathing, something that involved processing feelings. And that's how this workshop was born.
That combination.
I mean, we have heard so much in the media. There is so much in the media about these contentious divorces. What are some of them that you've heard of?
Multi-million-dollar, these nasty divorces. Remember Mel Gibson?
Oh,
and
yeah.
his divorce from his first wife, 7 children.
7 children.
there.
And she walked away with millions of dollars. I think at the time it was the highest.
At that time, could be. Tiger Woods' divorce, I mean, how contentious that became.
Yes.
And even as private as he and his wife had always been, this got splattered, right? Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, all of the accusations back and forth. I mean, that's a typical day in my office, Barb.
Yeah.
That's what I hear in my office. But as you said, a big piece of that is looking at all of the impact, not just the millions of dollars and
$50 billion, I think, is the number. I don't know where I'm coming up with that number, but that is the divorce industry. It's about a $50 billion industry.
It's a huge industry. And I always feel like I'm a little speck, a little pebble in the pond working against, as you said, all of these high-profile divorce attorneys and so forth, trying to just be able to help people, honor what had been. They loved each other at one point. They were together at one point, and to be able to honor that original agreement and be able to, really transition through this in a different way. But it's tough when there's so much money out there.
It's tough, and it's also tough because we're almost cultured and socialized to go to battle when we divorce. There is so little out there about amicable divorce. It does not get the press, of course, because it's not as dramatic. It's not as exciting. But unfortunately, our families and our kids pay the price. We pay the price when we go to battle like that.
Yes, we do. And I think that's a big piece of what we wanted to try to talk about here today, which is really encouraging this idea of there is another way. There is another way to really be able to talk about separating from people, going through this really difficult transition, and come out at the other end. Come out at the other end, with a little lightness, a little more calmness.
There definitely is a way to do it. The first time I'd heard about peaceful, conscious divorce in the media was when Gwyneth Paltrow came out with on her Goop website announcing that she was consciously uncoupling from Chris Martin, the frontman of Coldplay.
Right.
And the media had a field day.
Total field day.
Yes. They just they bashed her because they thought that was that new agey superiority. And unfortunately, a lot of what she was trying to do was missed, but not completely. Not completely. It wasn't lost on me and on you.
No, it wasn't lost on me. And on the contrary, what it made me was very curious about that phrase and where it had come from and what she had, what she meant by it. And we found that it really wasn't something she just kind of came up with, but there had been some research, some work on this, and some therapists out in California doing the work of honoring this. And there is an actual article called Conscious Uncoupling, which is authored by Dr. Habib Sadeghi and Dr. Sherry Sami. I'm hoping I'm not butchering their names too badly, but the article really does gives all the history of or a lot of history of this idea of being together with somebody until, the day that we die, and that whole concept. And what if that's not true? And how can we do this in a different way?
And how outdated that might be. The article is fascinating. We've posted it on our Facebook page. By the way, you please feel free to go there. Peaceful Separation is the name of the Facebook page. We've posted it. But the article talks about back then when marriage was first invented, say, people lived about 40 years. What about if that concept for us nowadays that we're living twice as long, what about if that is completely just not doable? What about if it's more realistic to say have 3 marriages?
And that goes against the grain of a lot of basic core American values, U.S. values, the whole idea of death
Do us part.
So I found that article to be very interesting. And then I further researched more of the phrase conscious uncoupling and came across the book, the actual person who had kind of cued the phrase and wrote a book called Conscious Uncoupling, and it's by Catherine Woodward Thomas.
She's fabulous. I love her.
Fabulous. And the book is very easy read, but nothing revolutionary in the sense of is something that we could really come to, but just so out of the norm. So out of the norm in the last 60, 70 years, certainly in the U.S. as far as divorce. And so I became fascinated. I really did. And then I thought, well, you have a point here to transition people. I've been doing counseling with people in offices all the time, in my office all the time, and wasn't always getting the movement. You know, the movement, the talking and the dwelling of the feelings, but not really the movement of coming through maybe the feelings of how did I love this person and how did I get this point where now I can't stand this person and I have to defend myself. And so a lot of these books that are here and the ability to do that kind of a seamless divorce, I started to look at are you seeing people doing that?
I think we all know people that have gone through divorce and continue to be friends. I think we do. I do. I know a few people. It's not common, but continue to be friends and make it look so easy. And I know someone right now that's going through it, and I see her, and they're doing it so beautifully. But it's not without pain and not without tears and not without a lot of sadness and grief.
Right.
Do you know people that are going through this process in an amicable way?
Yes. When I have started to present this idea, even to clients, of course, their first reaction is, well, no, if I could get along with him, I would have stayed married with him. If I don't want to be with him, that's the whole point. And so it's really... It really is a transformational process to watch them come to a place where they can look at all the pros and cons and the ways to cut their losses and all of that and still honor their feelings of being hurt or resentful or betrayed, however it is that the relationship is coming to a close. But I am seeing that some people can really do this. Some people can really make that choice, And
why should we make that choice, Gilza? What is your feeling on that?
That's a really important one, I think. I think the firstly, people will say, well, for the children's sake. I've done a lot of work with the court systems in Miami-Dade County, and all you have to do is sit in family court one day, family court or domestic violence court, and it will break your heart what people will say and do to each other that then they get to take home and have to present to their kids or their children have already witnessed. Okay. So the first thing I think is the best interest of the kids. Are children going to be able to maintain some level of stability, be able to love both parents? Are they going to be able to have some sense of continuity in their life? Just because we, the grown-ups, decided, well, I don't want to live with you anymore. I don't want to share this roof. But in addition to that, I think part of your impact on me, Barbara, through the yoga and through all of our conversations has really been, what about the wear and tear on the grown-ups themselves?
On the self.
Yeah.
There's
when I get people in my office, oftentimes it's one or the other. Sometimes I can get them both in the office to come in and start the process of what is often called divorce therapy. Okay, but oftentimes I get one or the other, and the wear and tear on the self is really almost predominant to the kids. I mean, they come in often for their own wear and tear. So I think that's a big one. If you're not at some place able to come to some place of calmness or peace, how are you going to parent?
Right. I'll tell you, as a person that has gone through it and even is going through it, because I'm co-parenting with my ex-husband, who our divorce was final in 2015. It is not an easy thing to do. Sometimes we get together and we're great. When we get together for celebrations for our son or for a, graduation or for a football game or whatever, we can catch up like old friends and we have tons to talk about. And then some days, it's each one in his own corner because we're just, it's that charged and difficult. I do need and seek a lot of outside help in order to do it. It is my mission in life to make sure life is hard enough as it is. It's my mission to make sure to try to preserve my son's mental state, my mental sanity as best I can, and my own. And so whatever it takes, I will do that. I constantly practice this conscious co-parenting with my ex-husband. I practice it so hard, and sometimes I do it beautifully, and sometimes I fail miserably.
So
I get engaged.
Give me an example of how you do the conscious co-parenting with him.
Well, one of the things I make sure to do is not to get engaged in any emotional exchange where I feel and see that it's getting heated. I just back up and I don't engage. And I feel sometimes the itch because I get angry and I want to engage. And I have learned over the years that doing that feels good momentarily. But it has the effect of having detonated a bomb in the relationship, in the family, because we're still a family. And that has spillover onto my son. Not to mention that it takes me, whenever that happens, it takes me days to regain my footing. I feel, nervous and anxious. And
energy expenditure in dropping a bomb, in cleaning up the messes and the pieces from that.
Yes.
Okay.
But it has taken so much practice. And it's one of those things that I have had to have at the forefront of my mind at all times. Never engage from a place of, an emotional reaction. I have to step back.
And that's a hard one. I hear from a lot of friends or even clients who tell me that the not engaging for them sometimes feels as if they are stepping down, being less than, being stepped on, being taken advantage of. And so that conscious idea of really trying to put into perspective that this isn't something that we're doing for the other person, but really for ourselves.
Well, if we can always keep in mind the costs associated with engaging in an angry and punitive manner, then I think we're better able to keep a cool head. If we can always keep in mind the costs.
And I think that that's been a big piece of what we have been trying to generate here, the conversation about a peaceful separation, the ability to do it. And it's like any other skill. It has to be something that is learned, and we have to have a learning curve with that, and it needs to be practiced. And it really does begin with a decision, with a decision to do something different. Something than either what you knew. So many of my clients that have been even open to this idea of peaceful separation is that they're children of divorce. They grew up. You and I didn't. But they grew up in families where the divorces were horrendous, and they didn't have contact with their own, big chunks of their own families growing up. And so they wanted to do something different. And it's still a challenge.
Like I said, we're cultured and socialized to go to battle when we divorce. This is completely, it's not natural.
And yet there's a lot of people out there that are of the same mind as we are, you know, Barb, like you
But
said.
then they get swayed by the divorce lawyers or the family members that are angry, you know, that their kids or their relatives are in these situations. And then they allow themselves to get pulled in these directions. But there's a lot of help out there.
There is. There's a lot of people out there that do think along these lines. And more, Miami-Dade County requires mediation in a divorce, for example. It requires that children and parents take a parenting course before they can divorce, to at least have information. There is a big set of attorneys that do collaborative law, collaborative family law. So there are pockets. Still not the mainstream idea, as you said, but there are pockets of people out there that think the way you and I do, you know. And this idea of doing it, merging our styles, right? The more of the mind, body, and the yoga with the processing of the feelings is really something that, you know, we're just kind of trying to put into play what we've talked about, what we've seen people do in our own families and so forth over the years. And I think those are the main reasons. Our children, well, more importantly, you know, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy,
This is
as
true.
the old saying
This
goes.
is true. What are some other areas where people, or some other sources that people can go to for help besides this book, Conscious Uncoupling? There's another book by Debbie Ford called Spiritual Divorce. There's therapy, like what you do. There is, I think, a really important source to turn to would be, you know, your spirituality, whether that be a church or a yoga practice or whatever, you know, you do to fill your soul.
Right. To fill your soul. Because divorce is draining.
It's draining. Even an amicable one is draining.
It's draining. There's lots of losses. There's lots of change. And as human beings, we don't like change.
No. As much as we crave it and as much as we crave excitement,
right,
we don't like change.
We don't really. You know, one thing is to go and choose an adventure. You zip line through Costa Rica, and another thing is to have change kind of imposed upon you, and you were nice, but I don't want to live with you anymore. So definitely change is something that we struggle with, and making those decisions and how to do those has to be very much a choice. It has to be very much a choice, and one where we can consider all of the options. I'm going to have a bias, my friend, of that. I think that therapy is a good place to do those things, but mostly because I think that it could provide a safe environment where you can bounce around all kinds of ideas and options on how to view a situation, in this case, a separation or divorce, whereas oftentimes we don't really have scenarios in our life where we can bounce around all ideas without somebody wanting to impose
their
way.
How about, Gilza, is it possible when you have one person that wants a conscious divorce and the other person in the couple that doesn't, that can get very, very sticky?
Yeah. I think so, because, you know, certainly the person that wants it is saying, well, you know, okay, this is not going to work then. It can't just be me. And again, feeling like if I do all of this and I'm being taken advantage of, and yet, as you've seen, even from your own experience, you can choose to respond or to react regardless of what your son's father says or does. It's challenging.
Yes.
I mean, obviously it would be easier if everybody wanted to be respectful and loving and create, you know, kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. However, I have seen people, both men and women, who make this choice and choose it for themselves. And it's really hard, almost blinders, like to be able to stay on that choice of, okay, so when he or she throws a bomb at me, I'm going to decide to respond versus just react. Okay. And really helping people understand, well, what are your choices?
Yeah.
What are the pros and cons to each choice?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it can be done. It's obviously more challenging, but just like marriage counseling, it could be done with only one person in the office.
Yes. I think also this process isn't linear, and it's not really neat and
that's a really
neatly
good point.
packaged.
Yeah.
It's messy, and it's, we figure it out as we go along. And sometimes you're both on board and you're both wanting this to be peaceful. And sometimes one or the other is in something that limits his or her ability to be responsive with kindness and generosity. And so if you're not both crazy on the same day, that's a good thing.
Well, that could be a good thing, yes.
So if you both remember your commitment, or even one of you, if in my case, in the last couple of months, it's been pretty contentious. But as long as I remember my mission and my purpose, things don't get too out of control. So I think it's even possible, even if only one of you wants it peacefully.
I mean, I think you made a good point there about this is a messy process, even when everybody wants to do this respectfully, kindly, peacefully. It's still a messy process. As human beings, feelings are messy. I'm married to an engineer, finance guy. 1 + 1 always equals 2 for him in his world. And the world of feelings and the world of human emotions, as I tell him, my world, 1 + 1 = 3. Always. A mother, a father, and a child. So 1 + 1 for me equals 3. It's not that clear cut, not that linear. And have to be able to be okay with going back and forth as long as there's movement, right? A circle keeps moving or a ball keeps rolling, even if it rolls sideways, backwards, forward, but it still advances at some point.
The other thing I'll add, too, is that I'm constantly expanding my options as far as how to walk through this and stay on the path of a conscious separation and conscious parenting. I'm constantly looking at, okay, where do I need support? What else can I pull out? What else do I need? How can I take care of myself? And so my bag of tools is not limited to therapy or to, reading these materials. It's whatever I need at that moment, I'm going to look for it. I'm going to look for the support that I need.
And I think that's kind of how this idea for us to bring this to Blink Radio came about, was really for us to be able to talk about what are all of the options out there. As I said, obviously, as a clinician, I'm going to think that therapy is a good one, but there are many ways to bring the self to the table and to reflect and to contemplate and to make choices and to start down a path and decide, oops, that's the wrong one. Let's pick another path. So I think that was part of what you and I talked about. Can we talk about all of the various paths and choices and then resources that are out there and really maybe provide a conversation, a point of conversation about, how to do this?
Absolutely. We should tell people to check out our Facebook page. We have a Facebook page called Peaceful Separation, and on it, we will go ahead and post these books that we've talked about today. And we've posted the article, Conscious Uncoupling, if you want to check it out. If you want to leave us a message on there, we'll be happy to respond. You can also find Gilza's website and phone number and my website on there. And it's a pretty new page, so it's still under construction, but we will be adding more and more to that page.
Open to suggestions.
Yes, absolutely.
This is a work in progress for us.
Yes, if there's something that you'd like to explore, on this show, please let us know. We're open to that.
Okay. So that sounds great.
Okay. So that's about all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. And join us next week when we'll continue exploring peaceful separation here on Blink Radio.
Thanks, Barb.
Thank you, Gilza.